So we've been talking about replacements, those in the word who either refused to walk in righteousness or suddenly changed up and were then replaced. In this piece, we'll talk about Demas, who was replaced by Timothy. As Paul was in Rome, in a Roman jail awaiting certain execution, many abandoned him. And Demas was one of those. Demas was a fellow worker spreading the gospel with them. And Paul writes to Timothy saying, please come. He's awaiting death and he was just abandoned by Demas. He's saying, please come, longing for friendship and for company. In Colossians, we only hear about Demas a few times, similar to Matthias. In Colossians 4:14, our dear friend Luke, the doctor, and Demas send greetings. So we hear a little, he's with the believers, he's with the disciples, he's spreading the gospel, greeting the people. Philemon 1:24, Epaphras, my fellow prisoner in Christ Jesus, sends you greeting, and so do Mark, Aristarchus, Demas, and Luke, my fellow workers. So we have confirmation here that that's who Demas was. He was a fellow worker of the gospel. And then finally, in the last mention we see in 2 Timothy 4:9-12, Paul again is writing to Timothy and he says, do your best to come to me quickly, for Demas, because he loved this world, has deserted me and has gone to Thessalonica. Crescens has gone to Galatia and Titus to Dalmatia. Only Luke is with me. Get Mark and bring him with you because he is helpful to me in my ministry. I sent Tychicus to Ephesus. So this is Paul's letter to Timothy, again, asking Timothy to come quickly because he was totally abandoned, by Demas. And it's one thing to part on good terms, but Demas deserted, and the KJV actually says to forsake, which means to abandon. And, just imagine all the persecution. Paul is in jail awaiting execution. He's probably super concerned with, who's going to continue leading the ministries, who's going to be organizing these things, like who's going to take on the burden of the journey, let alone how he felt to be abandoned. This is similar to that, to a betrayal of Judas, to choose the world over him and to leave him there in jail. And then even not only was Demas abandoning Paul, abandoning the mission, but in essence, abandoning Jesus Christ. In 1 John 2:15, love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. And this was the case with Demas. We can tell here, it's not written, but we can make some wise assumptions that Demas still had worldly ties. Demas still had things that were tethering him to this world, to the point where he would leave his friend and fellow brother in the ministry. He would leave the entire cause. He would abandon his faith in Jesus Christ for this world. James 4:4, you adulterous people, do you not know that friendship with the world is enmity with God? Therefore, whoever wishes to be a friend of the world makes himself an enemy of God. And that's what Demas did. That's what anyone does when they make friendship with this world. You cannot serve two masters. You must choose. And Demas made that choice. He made that choice to go follow the world, to serve the world, and abandon, again, not just the mission and his brother in Christ, Paul, but to abandon Jesus, period. Ephesians 2:2, in which you once walked, following the course of this world, following the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that is now at work in the sons of disobedience. So Satan blinded Demas's mind, and Demas Demas would have had to have given the enemy provision to do that, meaning there was a gap in his armor. There was, again, Demas had to have something tethering him to this world, something he was tempted, and he allowed himself to be tempted away, that he would abandon his whole ministry, he would abandon his entire faith and leave his friend in jail, awaiting execution. It's not like he's like, you're right, when you get out in a few weeks, come see me. He was awaiting execution. And finally, 2 Corinthians 4:4, in their case, the God of this world has blinded the minds of the unbelievers to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. And this is what happens, is when people turn back to the world, when they choose the world in general, but especially when they begin in faith, yet they then turn back to the world, they go back to Egypt, it's because they have let the enemy get in. They've given the enemy an entrance into their faith, and then their minds become blinded. They forget the light of the gospel. They cannot see the light of the gospel, which is truth. Nobody who, I won't say nobody, because I'm sure there's plenty of people in this world who know that Jesus is the truth, yet for whatever reason they forsake him. Yet for those who were once following the truth and knew the truth without a doubt, but then to turn back, it's really a reprobate mind to choose this world. It's really a reprobate mind, because suddenly it's like that light just grows dim. The farther away you get from it, the more you go into the world. The Lord is always present to forgive us, but the more we go into this world, we start to bond with this world. We're making enemies of ourselves with God. The more our hearts are turning cold, we're giving the enemy we're giving our free will to the enemy, because you do serve a master. Everyone serves a master. It's either the Lord or it is Satan himself. So that's the case with Demas, where Timothy ended up replacing him. Demas, who was keeping Paul company in jail as Paul awaited execution, he chose to go back to this world, to make friendship with this world. And that's what this world will do to you. That's what a reprobate mind will do. That's what the enemy will do. He'll have you betray those who are in the faith. He'll have you betray your faith. He'll have you abandon those who want the best for you, who are walking in the ways of the word. Let's be mindful of those that we keep around us, and let's be mindful to stay firm on this path.